It is time, ladies and gentlemen. We are back here at the Rainbow Six NAL. Jacob Cookies at the desk, and guess what? Spacestation Gaming about to take on DarkZero for the last spot at the Charlotte Major from North America. And not only is this a match between two teams close in the standings, two teams strategically similar in certain ways, and also two teams that have a lot of history. This is going to be a match for the record books, no doubt about it.
I'm looking forward to this one kind of blowing everyone's expectations out of the water. We've looked at the NAL as being a squad of the new blood, the guys who were doubted last year coming up from the bottom and looking to make a statement. But now we have to pick between the old guard teams who among Spacestation and DarkZero is actually going to go and represent North America. They're at very different ends of their own trajectories right now. One of them is a fantastic defensive team with pocket strats, and the other one is DarkZero, who have been adapting very well over the past couple of months. So this one is going to be fantastic. Yeah,
that's right. And you know, too, that words have been said on both sides coming into this one. How can they not be? So much on the line, and again, so much in the past that defines how these players are thinking about it. We've got a video that explores that a little bit more. Let's check it out.
We're shifting the entire IGLing. This will be my first stage in my entire career, taking the primary IGL role.
I would rate us a solid 10, maybe 11. I think we're at form right now after SI. I think we learned a lot. We have a lot to apply, and I'm just gonna be honest, our competition there was a lot harder than here, so.
The whole situation when Troy left, or retired, I put quotes on that. From what I understood, I thought we were gonna be able to get a player, or at least a temporary player. But then when we couldn't get that player, and I don't believe that he didn't know we couldn't get a player. I find that just bull. Not coming back to help us after all that we went through, and he just hung us out to dry.
I'd say since I came back, it's been not really what I expected, I guess. When I first joined the team, I was expecting to be playing hard support. Very quickly, we realized with the players we have on our team, it might not be the best fit to have me on that role in order to kind of play the style that we want to play.
Just from my experience teaming with Troy, he's one of the most valuable teammates I've played with. You know, people might look at him like he's not a big fragger, especially for the role he's playing. He's kind of on a flex role, which might require more fragging. And he's not the flashiest or most mechanically skilled player, but he's still gonna bring real value to each and every round that they play.
I'm not sure who believes he's being held back by me. I think anybody that's played with me knows what I bring to a team. At the end of the day, I'm probably more accomplished than every single person that says that.
Lycan's pretty much a second dad for me. Everybody I'm with is a family member to me. So kind of seeing all of us go through that together, and having this one guy that could make it better, just kind of sit out and just kind of watch us do it and just watch us miserably. That was probably one of the worst experiences of my career. That was the most stressful I've ever seen Luke. It changed his whole life, his whole perspective. And I just don't appreciate people that make people go through that. I mean, I knew even at Paris that pretty much it was Troy and Hyper walking to pair, and I literally told Lycan, I said, he's going to DZ. I just feel he just, in my opinion, I think he fake retired just to get out his contract. But
I know there's history with Troy on this team, and everything that went down, but there's no bad blood or anything between us. I don't have any words. Just expect to fight. We're not going to go down. We're not going to go down easy.
I'd say the biggest thing that ranked players and just players that haven't experienced the pro level don't quite understand about what it takes is just the mental taxation of it all. In order to improve, you do sometimes need to be very critical of people. Emotions are going to clash. Things are going to get heated, and that's just how it goes. But everyone staying on top of it and making sure that no one takes anything too personally, and everyone understands that we just want to get better and just be the best we can be.
Just saying you're gonna retire and you need this mental break, and then you come right back after you just left four or five people, just hung them out to dry. I just can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It was literally a shock. Him joining gave me everything I needed to I literally, every game I play him, I will do anything to make sure he does not win again. A match versus them is something I wait for.
In hindsight, I probably wish that I just stuck it out and played that split, but I do kind of regret that, I will say. Obviously, the fact that we're playing my old team and SSG, who's just the SSG DZ rivalry, I feel it's just been a staple of the NA scene, but also just the fact that it's my old teammates, and then the stakes of both teams probably having major spots on the line. It definitely makes the match mean a lot.
All right, wow, a test of loyalty, a question of loyalty. Cookies, as a pro player yourself, you played in some matches. Tell me about team loyalty. What does that mean?
Now, dude, I'm gonna be real with you. I love story time. I love telling stories about my old times back in the day. Now, I've been on both receiving ends of this drama here. I've been the guy who's been abandoned. Guy says, oh, I'm done. I can't play anymore, and then leaves and then comes back 2 weeks later. I've been there. I've also been the guy who's had, you know, I guess, if I'm being a little serious, I've had maybe a couple mental health issues with the game, which I believe that Troy cited that himself. Okay, so it's like, you know, and sometimes you just need to step away. Sometimes Siege is just freaking annoying. And it's too much. And, you know, you got to step away. And on that side, I understand Troy's side of it. So it's like, they should put it to rest today with the major spot, with the victory.
Well, today it all comes to a head, right? I mean, today the story gets put to rest once and for all. Speaking of head-to-head, though, Jacob, these teams have some history, obviously, you know, with the players themselves, but also there's stats behind this. There's numbers to talk about here, too.
Yep, there's a few things you want to talk about because obviously these guys go back a very long way. And we're not just talking about the days when Troy was on SSG. This goes back considerably. So just taking a look at their head-to-head, in best of ones, DarkZero do have the advantage 2 wins to 1 because they've only played best of ones in the NAL thus far last year. That was the only time that they ever played. But then you factor in best of 3s. Back when the North American League was played in best of 3s in the 2020 season, they are deadlocked at 3 wins each. And this kind of thing also incorporates if they ever played each other at a 6 Invitational, at a major event somewhere down the road. Their Tier 1 record is absolutely deadlocked. There isn't a clear advantage from a history point of view to justify this. And this is since the NAL was originally adopted back in 2020, which means the core of these rosters have still stuck together for a while. We're talking Rampy, Bosco, and Fultz on SSG when they were still together. That was thinking Nade days back then. And then also still when guys like Mint were both playing and coaching on this roster, and Hyper was still there. So there are some consistencies over that time period between both squads. But if you were to just figure out, the head-to-head record is going to decide this game. No, it's not, because it's so tight that there's not really a way to determine who's going to come out on top based upon just their own historical results. So if you wanted close, you just got close.
Well, we know it's going to be close, but let's jump into the individual teams to talk a little bit more about what's going to make it that way, right? First, we're going to talk about DarkZero, obviously the big story. You know, for a lot of people, Canadian joining this team after leaving Space Station. It's been a while. The teams have kind of moved on, I feel like, strategically. You know, Canadian doing what he can to kind of build this team strategy, kind of build, you know, I would say methodical would be the word you go for it. Now, I did get a chance to talk to Canadian yesterday. He was, you know, kind enough to exchange some Twitter DMs with me a little bit, and here's what he had to say about the match going in today. Professional to a fault, but he had to say that there we go. Usually try to keep things pretty simple going into a match regardless of the significance of it. SSG obviously tough team to play, but we know that we're capable of and feel prepared for the matchup. Practice has been solid, focusing on fundamentals and the maps we're expecting to be in the pool for our match. So not a lot of spice there too, but I think this kind of speaks to who Canadian is, right?
Yeah.
He keeps it business, right? To him, he can say it's just another match. He can treat it like just another match. You know, we know it's not just another match, but I think as a player, you got to have a goldfish brain. You got to go into this one like any other game, just do your best.
I do think for this squad, he's had a profound impact on changing what we call DZ syndrome from a long time ago. The idea of them being so stringent and so strict on their attacks that when they tried playing the game and then one little thing went wrong, the whole thing would fall apart and they wouldn't have enough time. It feels like, to an extent, maybe it's not completely true, but DarkZero relying so much on rounds being perfect now means that with Troy coming into the mix, they can be a little bit more flexible. Sometimes they understand how to deviate from a plan or find a plan B if something goes wrong. And I do think Troy has been very instrumental in introducing that to this team. It is also finding a way to incorporate the new blood and guys like Panbazoo and NJR into a system like this and really bringing out their full potential. And I do think Troy is a massive catalyst for why we've seen DarkZero have this kind of improvement since he joined the team.
And to give you a perfect example of that, I love referencing the OXG game with DZ. But the DZ OXG game, they were in a 3 versus 5. Perfect example. Everything went to poop, right? Things were not going to plan. Canadian decided, I'm going to come in from this opposite side of the map and get a 2-piece against 2 of the best fraggers, newers in vertical at the time.
Right, yeah.
He just folded both of those guys. Everyone calls him old and washed. He just slammed those 2, and then he called a flood on the site in the other direction, just completely away from that. And it's like, that's an element, as we've talked about here over the past couple of minutes, that DZ has not had in the past, that they will have today for sure.
Well, on the other side of the arena over there in Las Vegas, we have none other than their opponents, Space Station Gaming, trying to do their best to get that last spot in the major. And we'll see if they can do it. I mean, the thing is, Spacestation looked pretty strong here. Wow, he's even got the necklace. That's impressive. I hadn't seen that before. But this team, you know, what's it going to take, you know?
Ultimately, you're trying to not worry about like what the stress and the pressure of this match is going to deliver. The opponent is already difficult enough that if you add the factor of major stakes in the midst of it, you're probably already going to lose the game before it starts. And I think this team has faced immense pressure, but in the past, not just the three that have won a world championship, but both Skies and Hot and Cold have been in this position before. Right. They understand what it's like, maybe not in a best of one scenario. This is the kind of thing that happens when like a best of three has gone to the third map, and you understand that this is essentially the last ditch attempt in order to get further in the game. They understand that this is monumental, but you already know DarkZero is a tough opponent, so don't make things tougher on yourself.
Exactly. So there's Coach Lycan on your screen right now. Now, he and I also chatted a little bit yesterday, and here's what he had to say about the match coming into this one. I asked how things were going. First, he tweeted me his progress in teamfight tactics. Then he actually told me what was going on. He said, players are really excited. It's a big game and against a good team, and you don't get to play a lot of games like this very often. Sure, we've got a history with the orgs and their players, but nothing tops going to LAN and representing NA. The focus for Spacestation Gaming. Try your best to leave the past in the past. Think about the major. That's the focus.
And I will say, they have done a good job of leaving things in the past, both emotionally and strategically. This team is, I would say, I'm going to crown them the best attacker repick team in North America right now. They are doing really good things with it, pulling out their shields, really good OSA strategies I'm loving out of them. And I think that puts them in the, even though mathematically they don't have the best attacking win rate in the league, I do think it puts them in the driver's seat in most of their, I mean, every attack that they do manage to pull out the attacker repick and actually try to get mileage out of it, it does put them in the driver's seat in those rounds to win. And it puts them in a winning position. They don't always win. Sometimes, you know, you choke, but it does put them strategically above a lot of teams. And DZ's going to have something prepared for that, because all their little defenses and whatnot are going to be hard countered by that hard pick, or what's it called, repick.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there it is.
It's time to find out what the map is that we're going to go here. The bands are in just a moment. We will see where the battle for the last spot in Charlotte will take place. It's not going to be Bank.
Well, you need a map that can feed into attacker repick pretty well for SSG, but you also probably need one that both teams are comfortable with, because their rivalry does extend to several maps over the course of the past couple of years. So unless you're wanting to go to a new one, there's not really one that's a clear favorite for either side, unless you're Space Station, in which case you go to Cafe, when I do think we should see a ban here relatively quick, because they're undefeated on that one so far, and DarkZero's best map has already been banned out because SSG took Bank off the board. So what do we think of this last couple here?
First thing, I mean, yeah, we're seeing a lot of the classic ones out, so we're going to see something maybe technical towards the end. Border for SSG being banned. I actually talked about how their repicks are really good. On Border, one of the OSA strats I was talking about on Tellers was just
that was really good,
insanely good. But it's honestly, to an extent, that it's surprising they're banning it. Cafe ban from DarkZero, you talked about it. Where does that leave us? There's like 3 maps left.
Only 2 at this point. DarkZero have got last ban, so they can pick between Theme Park or Oregon as our last map. Do you go to a comfort pick in Oregon, or do you decide to take a chance on Theme Park?
All I know is both of those maps, the game, don't tell Beast Coast this, but the game is slowed down quite a bit on Theme Park.
Yeah.
And DZ, like I said, an OXG game on Oregon last week, they played at a very high, fast tempo. They picked the higher tempo map out of the 2.
Yeah.
And that means they want that smoke today.
All right, so we know we're going to Oregon. The information is out there for us. We've got everything we need to make these predictions. The question is, do the casters? Let's find out. So, Blue, Stokes, have you made up your mind? I think this is one of the hardest ones to predict yet.
Yeah, I would generally tend to agree, right? Because these two teams have been neck and neck, even in like their kind of like up and down nature over the past few weeks here. Over the past few games, we've seen these teams kind of seesaw a little bit in terms of their performance. So this is a pretty tough call to make. But considering the kind of standings that are on the line and the history for these teams, I've got to go with Space Station for this one. I feel that their consistency has been there just a little bit too much when compared to DarkZero, and I feel like, again, just like our first match today, I feel like it was going to be really, really close, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to see Space Station come out on top.
All right, one for Space Station.
I mean, I'm going to have to agree. I think that Space Station is looking to take this match right now. I mean, it's really hard to say as well, just because up against DarkZero, you really don't know which way this could possibly go, but I feel like that they're going to be able to strike while the iron's hot. This is a really anticipated matchup, and I don't see SSG faltering here.
All right, so both casters going for Space Station. Now, we had a disagreement between the casters and the desk earlier.
True.
Desk won that one. Not that anyone's keeping track, but what do my analysts have to say this time? Jacob, what do you got?
So if you look at the ranks for attack and defense so far, I don't want to use that for too many points here, but I think it's relevant. They're both neck and neck, 4th and 5th on attack right now, which is very even, but DarkZero are like 5th on defense and SSG are 1st. So if we're talking about a map like Oregon that has been very heavily attacker-sided, if you're utilizing repick effectively, they did it themselves in that overtime game against TSM earlier in the stage, and I think if they can lock down on defense, they shouldn't have any problem tearing DarkZero's supposed roam game apart. Even if Oregon doesn't necessarily play that way, I do think that they've got the advantage just based on what we've seen from SSG so far, but that's if repick comes to play. So I'll go with SSG, but it is conditional, and it matters a lot to how they play Oregon in my eyes.
All right, well, Cookies, the final choice is down to you. Will you as well pick Space Station, or are you thinking DarkZero has a chance here?
You see, my pick here does not represent my immense respect for all players involved.
Okay, all right.
Good disclaimer.
I think everyone here is insanely good, okay? So I'm just going to have to go with DarkZero. I actually like their choice.
Oh, really?
Okay.
I like their choice to go to Oregon. I loved how they played Oregon last week. And you know what? I think that's going to put them over the edge. I think it's if they play an unpredictable game and SSG cannot process it, I think DZ takes this.
All right, well, there you have it. 3 for Space Station, 1 for DarkZero. We'll see what the coin flip has to say. It's going to be heads, DarkZero, tails, Space Station. And it says heads once again, coin thinking DarkZero, but we will see. Either way, like I said, I think this one was one of the hardest to predict, not just because of the scoreline, not just because of the history, but because of how bad these players want it. The last spot at the Charlotte Major on the line. And so let's send it over to the casters and let's see this map and see who's going to the Major.
All right, thank you very much. And it is time now, ladies and gentlemen, the matchup you have all been waiting for to decide the final North American team heading to the Major in just a few weeks' time. Will it be DarkZero or will it be Space Station? These two old gods now facing off against each other, but only one can move forward. Stokes, let's get your opening thoughts here.
I hate when you do that.
We're going to Oregon, too.
It's going to be a long, grueling matchup, folks. 2 titans of the NAL, and not only that, but 2 heroes of North America in their own right, and, you know, their past stories and what we've seen them produce for this region. But now, somebody has to be removed from the Charlotte Major. Only 1 ticket to go here for one of these teams. Someone has to take the L, John, and personally, as I said earlier, I'm on the Space Station train here. I think that they're going to take it over DarkZero, but on a map like Oregon, I mean, we've busted this thing wide open.
Yep, pretty much the case. We've seen nearly every style of play exercise, and these are 2 teams that play some of the slowest styles inside of the entire region as well. So you can expect a lot of very slow, heavy build-ups with big, bombastic executes at the end of each round to truly decide who's going to be taking the lion's share of these rounds and who will end up coming out on top. A lot of it, in my opinion, going to come down to really just those 1 or 2 gunfights at the start of each round, and we'll probably see a lot of snowballing past that point.
Yeah, we've had 2 interesting last, couple of weeks for both of these teams. Space Station a little bit more polarizing in comparison to DarkZero. DarkZero, they only lost in the last 2 weeks to X at 7-5 on Clubhouse, whereas for Space Station, they beat Oxygen, but they also lost to Beast Coast, and they also lost to the Sonics. They also got a dub over Parabellum, but it's been back and forth, but it all comes down to this, John. It doesn't matter what has happened for the remainder of Stage 1. It all matters what happens here in Oregon. In between these 2, the game starts now. Who will go to the Charlotte Major?
Let's find out, ladies and gentlemen, as we're going live with the bands now. First one up, and it's going to be a Maverick band getting knocked out here by the members of SSG. Hibana still in play, so hatchwork should be doable, but accessing areas like the attic on the upstairs hold going to be a little bit trickier now. And as well, clearing utility going to get even more complex because Flores has just been taken out by DZ.
Yeah, and SSG will be starting things off on defense as DarkZero had the last map ban, so they'll be starting on the stronger side here. Although for Space Station, it's a little weird for their Oregon, especially as they actually have the same win rate on both sides of the coin. So looks like they should hopefully, at least by the numbers, be successful there today. The bans are now in. We've gotten Valkyrie and Kaid removed on the defense, and not only Maverick, but also Flores for the offense. So that means that Thatcher's going to be open and able to get a hold of all of these hatches, although the play around those aren't going to be as strong with the Kaid now removed.
So operators have been banned out, and we are heading into our first defense, exactly where you'd expect it to go as well for this type of a team. SSG going right for their basement hold. Not necessarily any tricky operators coming in for the attacking side to throw this off just as of yet, but keep in mind, of course, we have attacker repick in play now, so plenty of that can be changing, as we're already seeing with Canadian switching over from a Lion to a Twitch, and it would certainly not be surprising we saw a few more of these end up switching away as well, such as to bring in a Ying or something similar, depending on how DZ wants to play this.
No, absolutely not, and Twitch is going to work extremely well in this situation because if Canadian's precise with those drones, he's going to have the ability to get rid of quite a few layers of SSG's defensive setup, especially with Folds and Rampy working their way in. If you're able to delete those as well as a few of those Razor Blooms from Skies, it could be big boon for your offense. So we'll have to see how things are going to work fresh out of the gates here, as Space Station are going to be on some semblance of a roam. Yes, Fultz is going to stick around on this top floor. You wouldn't exactly expect it out of Wamai, just given the circumstances of his utility, but we'll have to see how it works.
He's got a decent matrix of support below him, so he's not necessarily out on his own entirely. If he takes a fight on the second floor, obviously that's going to be the case, but any players that want to crunch on him from down below are going to have to work their way past Rampy or another player, as we're seeing Rampy already knocking out the first drone. Panda is currently looping around, though, going to try to isolate his position, but it looks like he'll fall back further down the hallway before potentially getting spotted. And he's aware of the potential for a second drone to follow up his position anyway, but still forced back into the depths of security, where you probably heard the blasting of the wall there, as I believe we did end up seeing Fultz fall back from his own second floor position and regroup with his teammate here, and certainly doing so now even further, as they're going to fall straight up into the basement.
Well, Fultz still has both of his impacts, so I think this is preemptive from here, from SSG here, as they already had the kitchen hatch and everything else open, and it was just an initial roam game to see if they could potentially get some damage onto DarkZero or get some drones, but they've only really been successful in that department. They've gotten rid of 2 of Hyper's drones, but that's just about it. DarkZero now have map control, and they'll have the ability to actually get onto these hatches now, although SSG has opened up a couple of them for them already.
SSG continuing to wait out the timer here. Not hasn't been forced into anything just yet due to the slow movement from DarkZero, who similarly has opened up a few hatches but has not made much effort in terms of transitioning down to that basement floor. Still a few seconds away from getting to that anyway. As you can see, there's still a few utility pieces that need to be set up. Panda putting Overwatch there with the air jab over on the laundry stairs, and a few other things being lined up. You'll have noted too, Canadian did not end up locking in that Twitch, obviously, at this point, so they do have the line utility to assault onto the site with, and it's looking like they're going to try to swarm into the basement, but Houghton already peeked out. The drone call either not made or not made clear enough, as he's able to still take out a player and drop the case in the open. Houghton with full intel on this, and despite the nade bleeding through as well, he's able to negotiate 2 more kills and keep himself alive. It's down to just Hyper and Canadian now.
His reposition saved him from the splash damage from the frag grenade somehow, and now DarkZero, they don't have the manpower to actually get onto site. Canadian has to try and find something. He swings through down low, but so many angles to worry about, and Skies will pick him up. Now it's just Hyper remaining, and hopefully for him, he can potentially get a kill and stop this SSG flawless round. 2 ADSs will go away, and now Hyper with freezer control, at least for the moment. He'll swing through, potentially someone to swing his hallway soon enough. LMG in hand, plenty of bullets to deal with the amount of bodies that he has ahead of him, but SSG, they're just going to sit back and await his arrival. Really don't need to get too active in this situation. It's really Hyper that has to do something here, although he consistently takes damage bouncing between all of these separate angles. Finally, he'll work up Freezer. Won't be able to find the niche little angle in the corner, but finally Hot and Cold will double back. He'll win out his initial fight, but with the timer dwindling down low, that's going to be it. Space Station gaming with practically a flawless one.
Yeah, just stat padding at that point in the final portion of the round, trying to win out the 1v5. 5 was pretty much impossible to properly pull out there, so SSG had it locked down pretty much from when we see this play being made by Houghton. Like you said, that clutch little reposition where he slides out to the left after getting the initial kill of those two, and he knew he was going to be safe because this third player, technically, was stacked behind that one. That's when he decides to shift away from the nade. I think prior to that, he was kind of okay taking the trade if he went down because he very likely could have taken 3 people with him, so that would have been perfectly fine, but was even able to scooch out of the way after getting that second kill and avoid his own death. So masterfully played there by Houghton.
Very well done from Houghton, but also kind of a question mark as to what DarkZero's strategy was there, because they get the drone in initially, but everyone just swings the shielder, which is not necessarily the way that you want to handle that situation. If anything, the frag grenade should have been the first thing to come out to explode the shield, but it wasn't even cooked properly when it happened because they got so surprised by Houghton swinging them off of that. So a little bit of a miss time on the info, just really not synergized inside of that situation that just gave SSG way too much.
DZ possibly trying to make their play a little more sporadic, a little less easy to read for SSG, so that could explain why they tried to go for it, and maybe again the drone just not having advanced through there previously. They didn't have the proper intel to play off of that and just ran face first into the setup without having an opportunity to correct it because they were following their drone so closely behind. Either way, it's in the past now for DarkZero, and they're worried about round number 2 here, where SSG has of course shifted to their upstairs hold. We now have Rampy getting in the way of this initial clear over here towards the small tower, but he's very quickly going to have to give up from that position, as it's going to be overwhelmed by the large majority of DZ's roster.
Yeah, Rampy not having to pick up too much weight just yet, especially off of the back of Hot and Cold's efforts from that previous round, although Stage 1 of 2022 has not been the best for him. The Stage 3 of last year, things were pretty crazy for him. I just had my notes backwards a little bit there initially, so apologies about that, folks. But either way, his last year's stage was actually so very incredible. A 1.48 inside of Stage 3 for 2021, but for Stage 1 of 2022, he's currently at a 0.96. He's kind of fallen off a cliff in that sense. A KPR of a 1.17 last stage, but for this one, a 0.65. So he just hasn't been able to find his mark in the same way, but that could also be due to the fact that SSG has gone through some role changes. Could be, just the difference in calling between Bosco and Skies as well. And, if he makes good on his promise here today, then it really doesn't mean all that much at the end.
See Rampy patiently waiting for this lurk to come through inside of the basement. Not going to be able to isolate out the position of either player just yet. But Canadian potentially hearing the movement of Rampy around the corner here. Rampy, regardless of the situation, though, is going to have to pretty quickly fall back here to the timing starting to get a bit low. You'll note, of course, plenty of support is available for him upstairs, so he's not necessarily in a dire situation, despite the fact that DarkZero have considerable map control surrounding him. Second teammate has just made his descent. This is where they might potentially make a mistake here, as Canadian possibly not expecting, or rather, the members of SSG not expecting Canadian to be in this position in Laundry still so late into the round, but regardless, neither player is able to negotiate anything serious against each other here, as they're still just building up positioning. The members of SSG are waiting for their late pinch potential to show up. You can see actually a large presence of SSG still not in the site, so DZ does have a pretty clean execute through the big window route if they want to go that way. Canadian has been able to work himself over towards Laundry stairs, but he misses this player holding just outside of Connector, taking some damage from it. Thankfully, the adrenal surges are available, gets him boosted up right quick, and now Houghton has been down on the ground, but Skies gets a pretty much immediate response, taking out a member of DZ. However, they continue to storm into the site, and a flurry of kills goes their way, leaving just Rampy and Fultz in this situation, and now just Rampy with the elimination of Fultz. He's got a 1v3. It would be a successful 1v4 for him if he could close it out, but the case now down on the ground, the timer ticking in the opposite direction. Rampy very quickly running out of positioning, let alone health to play with here as well.
All out assault from DarkZero, and it'll go off without a hitch. The only frag coming through past what we saw in the post plant there for SSG was Sky's rat spot inside of Trophy, but everything had already been done for DC's initial success. So able to get into the site, get the plant down, and find the dub. So now we're tied up here going into round 3. Kitchen and dining hall set up for SSG. Up next, not trusting the top floor defense yet again, as they have to find a successful site here. They have a couple of different options, but just not seemingly wanting to go to the top floor.
Gonna go for the one that's a little bit more contained here in terms of the proximity to each other. You have the meeting room option as well, but SSG choosing not to go for that. It's played very different stylistically. This one you can kind of keep the team together as a unit a lot more, but at the same time, does have the double-edged sword. If DarkZero take control, it's nearly impossible to retake this site, even with the changes that were made to it on the most recent update to this map. You can see for DZ, a couple more repicks gonna come in. These are mainly just comfort changes, aren't gonna have a huge impact on the round just yet. For instance, Eclipse is changing his hard breach operator. Hyper is going to ditch the Fink, which means well, slightly less nades, but it'll be made up partially by what Zofia is bringing to the table. An interesting one there for a second for Canadian, but it's been depicked. And of course, we are going to still see Thatcher come in for Panda.
Gonna have the Thatcher come in, gonna have the Nomad come in from Canadian, so they'll be able to shut down the Showers Hall. These EMPs will make access so easy for them in this round, but we might have some early aggression here. Rampy's gonna crawl all the way up, and actually, fortunately for him, he is gonna get tagged up, but more than likely DZ not knowing that he was actually there. They were simply just trying to break the window, and Rampy just so happened to be in the crossfire. So might have an opportunity here to actually pick up some frags that are unbeknownst to ZZ, but hopefully the drone will come in soon, and if it does, could be very helpful. Actually, it looks like they did see him through that window break, so could be taking some time here to clear out T3. How much time can Rampy possibly waste, though? Oh, well, that's awkward.
Thankfully, he doesn't have to do too much to waste that time, as he pretty much just has to sit in a position where he knows he's not going to get peeked from. And as long as he does that, and as long as DarkZero continue to throw players his direction, he'll succeed in wasting out the time. Problem is, though, DarkZero have a lot committed, as you can see here, to their top clear as well, so they're still focused on getting into this site, while more so just keeping an eye on that position of that other member of SSG.
A little bit easier said than done when playing the T3 position. Sometimes things can be pretty risky, especially from some of those downward angles that you can possibly run into. But as of right now, SSG's strategy has worked. They've wasted so much time. It's quiet across the map. DarkZero's trying their best to drone out and see where they can possibly enter from. It's finally worked its way back towards a shower side's take here, with NJR and Eclipse currently poised to start working their way in. But where's the remainder of the DarkZero push? That's the real question. Canadian more than likely going to be setting some air jabs up in the hallway, but be looking for that, you know, Veil and Dagger. Where is DarkZero potentially going to try and position the rest of these members? They've already gotten their initial frag. Now as Bosco's going to falter, kind of an awkward situation there for both of these teams, but they still have to work through quite a bit of setup here.
Quite a bit of time still remaining for DarkZero to make their play, but it's been a relatively inactive round aside from trying to open up whatever angles they might have been given access to. NJR now waiting for his first peek at what would be waiting on the inside of locker room. Now we're going to see that popped open in the next few seconds. Rampy as well, keeping a close watch on the bottom white stairs window here. Being careful in the event that DarkZero trying to use that to get a quick pinch going. So far, the DarkZero only with that upstairs control. Hyper's going to start to put some real pressure on the site by opening up these top downs. But as you guys can see from the silhouettes, it's not really going to be a whole lot present from that. They can see that it's a hallway setup now from the drone. They've just snuck in behind Hot, and he's immediately going to be taken out as well. Another kill comes out for DZ, but Rampy was able to trade on the Panda, so it's not completely gone just yet. Down to a 4 versus 2, however. Things are certainly looking good for DZ, as they nearly have full right to swing into the site here. We can see Fultz going for a bit of a top rotate. He might actually be able to catch this player top white stairs, and there we go. That's going to be Hyper going down. Tries to get a second one, but not able to successfully leverage it that quickly. Eclipse, though, cuts the head off of Skies and leaves Fultz all on his lonesome. He sneaks down, trying to hide in the grass, but it's not going to work out. He's sniped out just as he tries to throw in the Nitro for some impact, and DZ yield themselves a second round on the attacking side.
So much respect from DarkZero inside of that round. Did not want to try and give up any initial frags. SSG eventually just go ghost hunting, trying to find DarkZero and see where they potentially are around the map. They lose a person, then DZ re-drones, figures out where most of the SSG, you know, ensemble is, and then takes out all of those members. Eventually we get down to the last few saving spots for SSG that could possibly come through, and just nothing to come of it, you know. Have to try and rotate back in for Skies, but with no yokai drones or anything, he just has to try and take the heads-up gunfight. DarkZero have the positioning there. It was just very well fought from DZ. SSG constantly trying to hold on to map control and playing the positions that they did actually ended up playing into DarkZero's favor because of the way that they played the map there. So it was very, very well done from them.
DZ ahead now, but only by a slight margin, and there's a good opportunity for SSG to bounce it back. Since they won 1 out of 3 of their initial holds, they can now return to that 1 and potentially tie the game up at 2-2. But that will mean, of course, that we need to see an immediate rebound for them on either their upstairs or first floor hold. Otherwise, it's going to be DarkZero taking control of the half, more than likely with a 4-2 scoreline. Let's see, though, how DarkZero try to clear out this basement for the second time. We've got a large amount of that roaming presence upstairs again for SSG.
I'm a big fan of the setup from Space Station. They're not only bringing in the Jaeger here, but they're also bringing in Goyo to be able to assist with some of the slowing that they're trying to have up against DarkZero for this type of an execution. Past that, they also have Malusi with Smoke as well, so Skies is going to work super well into this lineup with Warden. He's going to be able to see through all of that utility and hold down that position inside of Elbow that we all know and love so well. It's an extremely important piece to the overarching defensive setup downstairs, so that's always going to be high priority for the offense to try and clear out. All of this utility from SSG is going to help Skies in holding that down.
Things looking good here so far for DarkZero. Once again, just business as usual inside of the first minute or so. This is not a hyperactive team when it comes to clearing out defensive setups, so we're not really going to expect any fighting to be taking place inside of this first minute or two. Instead, we need to see them gather up the slow trickle of intel here, try to catch members of the team as they would attempt to maybe play out near the staircase or other areas of the map. A few soft breaches to be made as well. And then we can start looking at how they're going to potentially breach themselves into the downstairs portion of this map. You can see as well a better idea of how hot and cold, and the rest of SSG have kind of set up the site with those Goyo canisters being placed throughout the basement. And also DarkZero starting to open up the hatchwork a little bit more for themselves here as they try to prevent the rotates up the stairs here with the air jabs being kind of dumped by Canadian now onto the rest of the setup.
Another interesting wrinkle here, Pambazoo doesn't have frag grenades. He actually has stuns. So there's going to be 9 stuns here and 2 frags for DarkZero. Brought some claymores into play, and no, that's not 2 people with claymores, that's 1. Hyper has 2 claymores, as everybody that does have claymores now actually has 2 when they bring them, so just something to keep in the back of your mind. But we're mostly focused on these stuns here because Sky's now switching positions from the earlier laundry position into Elbow. This is going to work so handedly for him, as he'll be able to look through all of those stuns and not be affected by them at all.
Continue to wait and see how Bosco tries to leverage his own position from the pillar area here.
Speaking of pillar.
Swing comes in, yup. Panba able to insert himself through construction. SSG don't immediately notice it. No, Panba with a snap on Rampy as well. Bosco, despite the low HP, is still going to pick one up, but Hyper's just too clean. 2 more coming in from him for DZ, and now the rest of Space Station just has to bow down. It's all on Skies. He's got the smart glasses, be able to mitigate the flash potential there and pick up his first trade, but there's a lot more to be eliminated. However, look at that damage going on to Eclipse from the canister. Skies is not done fighting just yet. He's put himself in a box. This is very realistic for him to clutch it out, especially with the time remaining here. DarkZero going to try to group themselves up, push this together as a team so they can overwhelm him with just raw numbers. And so far, they're on par to accomplish that. Tries to bring out utility, but it's not going to work. And the next fight does not go his way. DZ succeed yet again, and now make up for their lost attack on basement from earlier.
This is an offensive onslaught right now from DarkZero. They're clinical with this. It's very calculated on the way that they're clearing. That round, though, especially, that's all off the back of Hyper's efforts. He did so much there with that AK-12, taking out member after member of Space Station and opening up the entire site. Sky's the only saving grace that Space Station now has to try and fight back, and honestly in a pretty poor position as well, because he initially thought the Canadian was still behind him as he was over near main stairs. So the positioning of all these different players are completely unbeknownst to him, has to try and clutch up, and it's just too far gone. And now for Space Station, it's down to the tac timeout. Their only tac timeout now being utilized on the first half. This could be where DarkZero break SSG.
Not only just the first half, but like with 2 rounds to go before they switch sides as well. So most of what's being talked about right now probably not going to be super applicable once we get to round 7. Obviously, 2 rounds from now, probably a little bit they're going to be able to carry forward. But keep in mind, DarkZero is going to switch up their playstyle too once we get over to the defensive side. So this could be risky here now for SSG to take the pause so late. However, it allows them to tie it up and get themselves back on an even footing, and they have confidence in their attacking side. Everything should be A-okay for this team. But right now, things are looking bleak for the Space Station side of things.
Yeah, that's kind of the other side of that sword, isn't it? When you take that tac timeout, the other team not only has time to speak, but they also have time to talk to their coach as well. So Mint having a hand in these rounds going forward from DZ. SSG now have to have an answer, and it all starts here with this top floor defense, and they're extending this out. I think if I know anything about Lycan, he said, yeah, we need to take the kitty gloves off. There's nothing that we have to put in for a stop here. We have to get to this major. At least die trying, right? Like, don't try and be like, oh, we held a couple of things on Oregon, and that's why we didn't make it to Charlotte. Pull out every strategy that you have in that hat and see if you can get one over on DZ, because then you're taking a pretty nice flight to North Carolina.
There's obviously a fine line these teams will want to toe with regard to that, too. They don't probably want to reveal that much.
Oh, cheeky, Sky is so cheeky.
Very nice position there. We'll see how he plays that out. But yeah, considering these teams have probably already started preparation for the major, there may be like new things in their pockets that they have to like decide in this matchup if they want to bring it out or not, because obviously they don't make it to the major. All that preparation is pointless for the next few months. But obviously if they do, they can use it. But if they bring it out here, they're also going to be potentially revealing stuff. So it's a very tight battle. They have to kind of dance. This is for both teams. In reality, here's keep in mind, you can see that number 4, number 5, DarkZero. Okay, as Volts nearly gets himself a fighting garage, but the finish score with DarkZero nearly locked into the major. But if we see SSG take the victory today, they can steal that spot. Got themselves off to a good start on this round here, being able to find out Canadian and knock out the Jackal too. So it'll be harder to track these remaining members of SSG out that are still hiding across the map, as you can see for Rampy, for instance, inside of Meeting Room.
What a game to watch. These titans of Siege for North America going up against each other and firing back and forth. Finally, SSG hitting the mark in their opener and taking down Canadian. The Jackal no longer in play, and now DarkZero having to do a lot more heavy lifting in the info department. The frag grenades both go off underneath. The depth charge will not land, though. Not any damage onto Space Station, as they're looking strong on this top floor.
Halfway through the round, however, so still a good amount of time for DarkZero to spend exploring the map, clearing out any extended play, and get themselves proper access to the inside. Last volley of nades.
He's ahead of him.
Yeah, starting to come out here from NJR. Final one deployed, so 0 impact with the entirety of the nade kit now used up for DZ. And as Stokes mentioned, Rampy now in this power position at the end of the kitchen hallway can cause some serious havoc against DZ if they're either not aware of his position or do not have appropriate flank watch to counter this push that he's now making his way towards.
This is super problematic, and that's why you see DZ trying to set up around the big window, because they have to find a place to execute. But with Rampy on the flank, they also have to be worried about this. Hyper potentially dead here in moments, and he will be. DarkZero, the round slipping away, but any of these angles, they're not working out right now. They can't get a kill, as Skies will take down Pambazoo. It's starting to look like SSG has signs of life. It'll be the attic window next for Skies. He'll prone and try and hold on to that. What can DarkZero potentially do? They don't have any frag grenades. They do have some stuns, but they have a dead NJR and Eclipse to falter. SSG bounce back off of Lycan's words.
The definitive statement, too, coming in there. A flawless round from SSG. DarkZero suddenly flatlining in their capability to accomplish any serious amount of map control, even close to the site, let alone pick up some kills for themselves there. So now time to see if SSG can keep that consistent. They are going to head back down to the basement, try this out one more time, as DarkZero was the one who had just fielded a pretty hard countered SSG starting defense for this site on the very first round of the map. What's DZ going to do to make up for it? Are we going to see them speed up? Are they going to try to play things even more tactically? Maybe try to bait out a few members of SSG? Time will tell, of course, as we're heading into the round now.
It feels like DarkZero really needs to challenge for a lot of these hot spots around the map that are pretty critical. Like inside of that last round, for instance, Rampy was able to bottleneck DZ because he got over to Big Tower before anybody tried to get control of that yet again after Skies left. So he's made it to where they can't effectively attack Attic anymore unless they want to take the gunfight with him. So now they try and fall back, push white, and take big window, but none of that works either, as that's what SSG's initial strategy was set up to do. It was set up to try and force them over into that direction because they're holding on to Master, they're also holding on to Armory, so there's really only 2 ways you could potentially go there, John, and if we force you down to 1, it's, well, pretty telestrated on where you'd potentially peek me from. So very well done from SSG inside of that round, but they still have to get one over on DarkZero to tie things up here and give themselves a potential to shut things down on the offensive side.
All right, well, the round truly begins now, and DZ once again putting a light touch onto the small tower clear. Looks like they just want to have Panba along with Hyper work together to knock that out and make sure that SSG are not hiding anything on the top side of that. Bit of a split clear aside from that, as you can see one player hovering around the big tower, Canadian with control over that, and a few more still looking for an insertion point towards the front lobby. But as you guys can see, there is so much going on in the defensive setup from SSG right now. DarkZero truly have their work cut out for them. You've got Houghton on the long roam upstairs players inside of Billiards, Fultz holding security, I believe Skies and potentially Bosco as well supporting that position. So the site itself is actually very weak right now, but DarkZero will have to pay respect to these extensions if they want to be able to get access to it at a later point.
Now this is where things get really, really scary when you're playing up against a team like DarkZero, because if Canadian recognizes this could be the quickest shift to the basement, and it actually might be.
And I think they're hearing it downstairs.
As well as the Jackal down low. Skies is going to win out the initial one. Rampy gets one as well. NJR's all by himself. Pambazoo will pick up one, but this is a safe spot now for Space Station. Skies has found safe harbor. He'll sit in behind the bomb chassis. He has some crosses from the remainder of SSG, but we still have Hot and Cold on Rome as well. There's so many missing pieces right now that DarkZero don't know about, and this is the potential to get the tie.
This is the huge issue with trying to kind of ignore the extended game that SSG has played into. If you don't hit those first entries off rip, you are basically putting yourself directly in the middle of a sandwich with the outsides being made of your opponents here. DarkZero have no way to move forward. They have no way to move back. They are simply stuck, and they have a minute and 15 seconds to try and find a way out of this with a player disadvantage. So they, in theory, really shouldn't even be peeking just to directly take fights at this point either, as it's too big of a risk for them. But obviously, they don't have a choice for the reasons I just stated previously.
Now you have some opponents, but the real opponent's the clock. Now Hot and Cold's been droned out, and he's getting pinched as well. Pambazoo with the top hold, and he'll take down Hot, and they found the equalizer, and now they have a chance to actually get into the site. They more than likely still know where Skies is, as well as he earlier threw a Goom Mine into the door frame, so they'll have some telestration off of that, but DarkZero are looking to shift things up. Eclipse will be working his way into meeting, but he's going to double back as it looks like the call is for construction instead, and with very minimal time, they have to get in here very quickly. NJR still has 2 frag grenades and plenty of stuns to be able to bait out all of this utility, but Bosco now calling the cross. Frag grenade out. He's dead. DarkZero. Do they actually get this round? Skies, that's a big kill there. You can't take that swing. There's not enough time. Rampy in the 1v3 now. Everyone's just taking their gunfights, John. Space Station, you gotta slow it down. DarkZero will take this half 4-2.
And ultimately they end up on that very same scoreline we kind of predicted that this would be trending towards here, as they have a nice rebound on these basement attacks, both going into their pocket. And aside from that, SSG, the pause only yielding them that one singular round. Now we have to hope that they were given some inspiration for their attacking side too, because DZ is only 3 rounds away from shutting down this map and now locking in their spot for the major, taking away SSG's capability to steal it from them.
If Space Station lose this game, that's going to be one of the rounds that we call back to on the desk for sure, because Space Station had such an opportunity to take that away from DarkZero, but they were so flat-footed in the way that they showed themselves to DZ. So many isolated gunfights. Also, Bosco with the misplay inside of Elbow, just locking himself in there with the frag and hoping somebody's going to potentially push the angle. There were so many misplays there for Space Station Gaming, and DarkZero able to capitalize on literally every single one of them. So now DZ with the lead, and also the defensive end now, is they're going to start things off in the basement.
So, usual starting point, like we said, DarkZero and SSG are, in my opinion, 2 very similar teams. They were both led at one point, for anybody who doesn't know the story at this point, by a Canadian as well. So,
really?
Yeah, you know, it's a real big...
Never a guess.
Real jaw dropper there. But so there's still a lot of that kind of Canadian style, I think, existing on SSG, even though it obviously has been some time since he led this team. I think a little over a year now, I believe, if memory serves me correctly about the timing of it all. So once again, he's been off this roster for a while, but you can still see some echoes of it, even with Hot and Cold and a few of the other members taking over the leadership for this team. But still, looking to once again take away that major spot. Might be struggling to do that, though, due to DarkZero's current strength in this situation. But we have SSG going for the slow clear at the moment, both Houghton as well as Fultz already committed deep. One trying to go for cafeteria control and flush out the security player. The other one, of course, trying to deal with the upstairs flush. And it's looking like both are going pretty much along schedule right now here, as DZ continue to lose more and more positioning, but they're not going to cry too much about that. This is all part of the plan for them, too, to slowly fall back and eventually just line up towards a bunker here in the basement.
That was a great idea there from Canadian, because SSG just discovered that the entirety of the top floor was clear, and if they stuck around, Hot and Cold was going to be there in a jiffy, breaking up that flooring and making things overly complicated for them to get back to site. So fantastic time management from them, as now we have a minute and 48 seconds for Space Station to break up these hatches and begin setting up their execution. Shouldn't have too much action happening before like the minute mark here, but we could see SSG maybe get feisty around the stairwells, as especially if Pambazoo trying to get forward on his position. But as I just said, it's more than likely going to be a lot of droning and just trying to use this utility to get these hatches.
halfway through the round now, and it's been very, very quiet. DarkZero not wanting to take a chance on any of these early gunfights. Have completely given up all of that positioning, so it's all just SSG setting up and continuing to drone things out now on their own basement hole. Twitch drones even moving through the equation here. We'll probably see this one try to sneak through the explosion and see if maybe they can knock out a few pieces of utility deeper in the site. Maybe even some that might be present from on top of the hatch, but not really much going to be noticeable here. These guys will eventually have to drop down into it. Doesn't look like he wants to get too adventurous, however, with this thing due to how useful it may be over the next few seconds. Indeed, a golden sick shot being snuck in, and Rampy sneaking in a headshot against Panba. SSG gets the opening kill of the half, just 2 minutes and 15 seconds into the round here. And now they have the opener to potentially wedge their way into the site too. They can afford to take a risk on just a blind entry if they wanted to truly go for it. Now they can do so doubly as they move forward with that nade kill, knocking out NJR. Eclipse will pick up the first exchange. It's actually a 2-player hold on the construction wrap right now. This may be a little too much to push past. You can see there too, the case has been fumbled slightly, so SSG need to go back and pick that up. This is still winnable for DarkZero, despite the issues that they are currently facing. However, that's a big find. Hyper getting knocked into his downstate. They could have used that firepower to fend off the 4-player push that is surely going to be working its way, and one player still inside a freezer as well. Eclipse going to go for the late wrap, but there is Overwatch for it, and he's immediately caught, shut down by Skies. The plant should go off without a hitch, and as well, you can see another member of the assaulting team still up on top of that freezer hatch, so they make easy work of the last member of Spacestation shutting down that round.
Very similar round to how we saw DarkZero work the map, waiting for the defense to expose themselves and winning it time and time again. Although for DZ, it was done in more grandiose fashion. I don't exactly know why Pambazoo chose to go for the 50-50 on the stairs, but he more than likely thought that the Space Station member could have been distracted or something like that, but definitely did not work out for him. And then past that, SSG also killed yet another member of DarkZero. I think it was NJR, but that's besides the point. The real point is they get full construction door as well as pillar control. That's now all in the favor of Space Station Gaming. All they need is for somebody to potentially watch the back end and drop in later. That's Hot and Cold's job, and then everybody else can simply bear down on the site players and see what they can potentially get through the myriad of different angles that DZ have to worry about. And as you saw, they got picked to pieces. There's really nothing that you can do in a situation like that when there's so many people trying to gun for your position.
Right, so SSG quickly getting back into the swing of things. Already just 1 round behind the total for DarkZero. Not going to see much in terms of the repick department here. They seem pretty satisfied with the operator lineup they have brought to the table. A bit more nade potential and a bit more scouting potential too, with Rampy's pick over towards the Yana. Aside from that, though, things are going to look very similar to what we saw in the last round as they wanted. So they don't really need to change a whole lot here for DZ. We're going to see a Mira come in there for Hyper, so greater capability for these guys to potentially swing out and take those initial duels and also win them in their favor. But time will tell if that is actually going to be the case, as we saw in the previous round, SSG had that initiation advantage for sure.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of DarkZero, they actually have 2 players that are in the top 10 of the NAL currently by rating on their team. It's NJR and Hyper. NJR with a 1.10 and Hyper with a 1.14. And he's actually top 6. He's really, really gunning up there. And this game more than likely could push him even farther, as he's currently at 9 and 6. NJR not having the hottest game, but they're still in the lead. And he's definitely had a hand in quite a few of these success stories. But now for Space Station, they're going to be again clearing out the map. We're already about a minute in here, but with DarkZero set up downstairs being a lot more turtle than anything, the early engagements are not going to happen.
Hyper just denies one of the Twitch drones real quick as it tries to sneak its way into the basement. Obviously not going to be expecting much success with that, but we'll see if Skies can maybe sneak in for one later. The round overall kind of developing the same exact way as the previous round did, guys, so it's going to be a relative first 2 minutes of not a whole lot happening here, as obviously DarkZero has already given up any sort of extended position they wanted to play for and are just locked in the site now, waiting for SSG to take their first risk, take their first chance at getting access to it themselves, where they're going to be able to fight off against players like Panba, NJR, and the rest of this outskirts holding team here that is ready to face off against the challenge that SSG will surely bring over the next few seconds.
Yes, indeed. Have all the utility necessary to clear out myriad of these positions. Also, there's not going to be any smoke cover here from the defense. No Warden in play, so Skies could get away with a lot here, depending on how these smokes are utilized. A hot ping inside a freezer hallway, but that's not going to mean too much as of right now. Just awaiting the arrival of the tower stairs player. Open arms right now for DZ as they await the assault. Rampy with the initial shots. He hits a beautiful flick onto Pambazoo's. 0-2 in this position now is NJR up next. Luckily enough, there's a Wamai disc there to prevent anything throwables, and he'll be able to back off into stock.
Pretty sure it's Rampy with 2 entries from this position now as well. He's won it both times with the G3. So good stuff from him, and the drone works as perfect bait for Fultz to swing in as well. He's got the 2nd kill against NJR. Things are looking good for a repeated victory for SSG, which would surely force a rotation from DarkZero. Nitro's out, but it's way off mark for impacting players. Does open up a rotate. Eclipse, though, with a sniper shot, swings out like a race car to take the head off of Rampy and succeeds in doing so. So SSG don't have things locked down just yet. What a juke from Hot and Cold, though. Ducks under the spray, keeps things even as he also loses another teammate. 5 seconds left, though. The members of SSG need to put this case down on the ground. Hot and started it, but in come the rotates to try and stop it. Are they going to be able to hold it off? And it will! Skies with the big double to shut it down, and SSG ties up the game.
This is what I wanted to see when I heard that on the final day here of the NAL, we were not only going to be competing for a major spot, but it was going to be Spacestation Gaming versus DarkZero. Electric moments like that. A 2K out of the Twitch, and we're tied up here. SSG starting to run it up on the offensive side, and it's looking so good, John. DarkZero have got to slow down this gameplay. They keep trying to contest these areas that SSG are able to grab onto, like big tower stairs and things like this, and they continually die inside of these engagements by overplaying their hand, trying to extend up the stairwell and things like that. SSG are going to take those 9 times out of 10, especially when you have somebody so strong in the frag department like Rampy.
We were talking about it earlier about the kind of sidewind stats for this map right now and how it's fairly attacker skewed. So we'll bring that up once again here, and how a lot of players may still be feeling the nature of this map, generally being leaning towards the defensive side and may feel extra confidence to take duels because of that, and that's not necessarily the way this game plays anymore. It's
48% overall for the defensive win rate, so it's actually pretty close.
Yeah,
it's actually pretty close, which, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, especially just looking at the map, right? A lot of people find a lot of success on the downstairs side, but then when you start going upstairs and going to the kitchen sites and stuff like that, it gets a little bleak sometimes. So for both of these teams, they've definitely felt that heat as the offense is time and time again taking it to the house. But now for round 9, this is what separates these two. Who will get one over on the other? Gonna have an extended hold here for DarkZero with Eclipse downstairs and a bunker-esque setup inside of security. He's gonna have the hatch to drop off, but no other real utility to assist him, especially from himself. More than likely those frost traps along windows and other things across the map.
So once again, guys, fairly inactive opening to the round here. We're going to see a drone sneaking its way in, possibly to hunt out the position of Canadian or another member here. Either way, could be a good flank watch for SSG regardless. That could lead to the catching of Canadian at some further point, should the members of SSG lose on the initial fight they take. But we'll have to see if that'll end up coming to bears. Obviously, they got to deal with Eclipse's position first and foremost. He's got this bunker locked away inside of security. All 3 walls are reinforced. He does have the hatch, obviously, to escape, to make it back downstairs, and that's where the support from Canadian would come in. But keep in mind that drone that was roaming around there a few moments prior, good chance that it either got shot out by Canadian, which would be an obvious tell, or that the drone just spotted someone entirely. And there's the nade to correspond to that, as Canadian will fall back down the stairs to dodge that. Probably going to make a quick return, though, since it had fairly minimal impact against him.
A beautiful setup here from DZ. The time sink here from Space Station. They really don't know what to do with this situation. Rampy is holding the rotation. He's got some angles to worry about upstairs as well. And they also know that Canadian's more than likely in this area. This is something that we've seen him do time and time again every single time that they go for a setup like this on Oregon. So SSG more than likely know he's around that area, but they haven't chosen to do anything about it just yet, just because with Eclipse in tow, things could get pretty hairy, but they're going to be forced to do something soon enough. With a minute remaining, Space Station, they mostly have control on the bottom floor, but no walls open or anything. Just the big windows. They're going to hop inside, at least for Bosco's sake, and he's starting this plant. Pamazoo, he's more than likely got the stop, but no, he's actually been taken out by Fultz. The plant's not going to go off, though, as DarkZero's going to win so many gunfights here. SSG fight back. It's a 3 versus 3.
Eclipse with the most recent pickup puts DZ back in control, but for how long becomes the question, and there's the answer. Wrong read from Rampy as Eclipse is able to take him out instead, knocking him down and leaving only Fultz alive here. SSG had a booming start to this attacking half, but it's finally run its course, and DZ more than likely going to be able to pick up their own response. 20 seconds left, and a Toxic Babe has just blocked the way of Fultz here, so it's a nigh impossible play for him to make. You also have to consider Case is down on the ground. He has to clear 2 different floors. This is going to be so tough, and yeah, just does not work out. He's burned out by the smoke gas grenade, and that's finally DZ on the board.
It's an impossible feat there for Fultz, but for DarkZero, a dastardly setup, especially for Eclipse's sake, as he's going to get a triple kill inside of that round. And that's punishing to Spacestation because they knew what the setup looked like there, but they just weren't worried about any of the angles that could have potentially been coming from the security area, and that's how Eclipse gets most of those kills. Kills one hopping inside of the window, able to help with the planter, I also assume, and then past that, able to pick up that last frag that we saw from him. But for DarkZero, I mean, they're going to be happy about that overall. Spacestation wanted nothing to do with Canadian or anybody there. The only thing they dedicated to that, info and one frag grenade. But it ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back, or in this case, DZ. Or rather, SSG.
Oh, God, I think I got the teams confused a game or two, or a round or two ago as well. So either way, DarkZero once again in charge of things here as they've taken that 1-round lead for themselves. But again, still need to see them find a second site where they can find a platform to work off of here for the defensive halves. SSG had a kind of similar issue as they were really only winning those basement rounds, was finally able to piece one together towards the end of the half for themselves. But now it's DarkZero looking for that second site. They've gotten there first in the upstairs lock, but basement obviously did not pan out, so they have to go for a bit of a Hail Mary here in their meeting room play and hope that that nets them the second out of 3 rounds they need to close down this game.
Although it's Oregon, this game feels like it's actually been moving so very quickly. You know, all the way to round 10 already, and I don't want it to stop. I mean, whoever wins this, they're going to Charlotte, which is just going to be so very amazing. The only bad thing about this matchup is that somebody has to lose. Somebody can't go to North Carolina. Although DarkZero closer to actually punching that ticket, SSG still with a chance here as Rampy will hop into the T2 of Tower. They have NJR playing the lower area right now with an M590 Hyper bearing down on one of the door positions as well. And as you said, the timing eating away at him here, but luckily enough, it's not going to mean anything detrimental to DarkZero as of yet.
NJR just kind of on anti-drone duty right now. He's already taken out one. Should be able to get this one. There we go. He's waiting for the follow-up peek. Don't think you're going to get it, but hey, have a third drone because they just keep feeding them to you. DZ, 3 drones at least going down because of that. I don't even know if they've spotted Hyper's position either, so he could be a real nasty surprise if SSG want to try and peek in hopes that NJR is still holding the stairs position. Of course, you've got this upper position from Rampy too, so this is a real complex ball of fights that's building up to a pretty exciting fight, which is going to happen over the next few seconds here. Hyper is the first to take an engagement from behind the stage wall. Nade's going to go out against him. Another one getting ready to be chucked down, but not sure if they'll have the appropriate angle to make that work. And here we go. Houghton swinging in behind Fultz's pickup against Hyper. Beautifully cleared by SSG. They've got the lead now in a 5v3 and are looking to take it even further with a beautiful shot from Fultz to knock the head off Canadian.
Pamba with some big plays, but he's down and dusted. Spacestation shut it up. It's a flawless round from them. After initially a pretty complicated setup from DarkZero, a lot of moving parts for Spacestation to keep a track of, but it's going to work out for them in the end. And now it's the tack timeout from DarkZero.
3 rounds in a row from Spacestation Gaming here, and they have now tied the game up because of that 5-5. Actually, sorry, not in a row. My bad. We did see that 1 round.
Yeah, it bounced back and forth. Now we're on the teeter-totter.
Yeah, now we're on the teeter-totter between these 2 teams. And either way, DarkZero has to be feeling a little bit, unfortunately, a little bit deflated, I guess would be an appropriate word to use in this situation here. They've had to go for their tactical timeout. They've kind of lost their edge when it comes to the aggressive capabilities they could maybe throw out on the attacking side, can no longer seemingly do that from the defense. So what is this pause going to yield? What new strategies are going to come out to bear now from this that they can potentially use to get ahead in the early round or potentially just more consistently close down in the mid to late round?
Well, you know, as of right now, John, we're at 5-5. Whoever wins this next round has put us on to the penultimate point of who can potentially take a pretty cheeky flight over to the East Coast. And this right here is what separates the men from the boys. I mean, there's going to be so much mental stress going into these next 2 rounds. A singular decision could be the make or break for you for the entirety of a stage. And, well, it all comes down to this. No more tack timeouts, no more pauses, cross your fingers, knock on wood, whatever you do for that. Now for DarkZero, it's down to the gameplay to see if they can potentially get it over on Spacestation. They're back downstairs, and we'll have to see if Pambazoo is as frisky in this pillar position as he has been for the last 2 defenses.
So we will have to see if the fallback onto the basement yields success for DarkZero, or if SSG is going to be able to continue to field their own bit of success here. Just to correct myself from earlier, a 2-1 record so far on this half for SSG, as they've been able to negotiate a tie from that, but now how do they once again succeed through? Is it going to be the same bit of it as they just assault the basement, as they've already done 2 times in this half, by the way? Both rounds they won have been on this site, so they've got to be feeling good about that. But at the same time, DZ just coming off of a pause, just having some fresh intel coming back in on how exactly to play against this type of clear from SSG. Could be a bright future ahead for DZ.
Yeah, and that's one thing to notate here. DarkZero, they've reinforced all of these hatches, no longer playing the extended play that we'd seen some time ago. Instead, they're going to go for the turtle here and hope that the angles can potentially shut it down on this basement setup. We're going to have Pambazoo on a forward position once again here in Big Tower, and Rampy on the precipice of clearing this. So potentially an engagement going down yet again here. Walks towards the back stairs. Bosco's already droned out Pamba, and he's going to continue to keep that drone alive. They've cleared out that area, and Rampy is back in his power position.
Very quiet here as SSG struggling to find the best way to move forward at this point, or rather just taking their time with the extra control they do have. They do want to make sure that they gather as much intel as possible, and that oftentimes will lead to a bit of delay in terms of getting access to this basement site. Just the way it rolls from time to time here is DarkZero not going to show any type of face away from that basement inside of these first 2 minutes here. They have no reason to. It's too big of a risk considering how one-sided the rounds have been in the favor of SSG that they've already played in this site.
When you know it, the last hatch opens at exactly 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining on the clock. It's almost like these people are pretty good at the game, John, if you've been noticing them throughout most of this stage. So here for DZ now, back to very similar circumstances, although not down a member of the team as of the moment. One near boiler door here. It's going to be Pambazoo yet again, bouncing back and forth in between angles, hot and cold, with the potential to bear down on this position. But this is more than likely going to be a full-on assault, especially given the position of Spacestation Gaming at the current moment. Going to have some of the potential smokes come out here as they'll start to get used up by Eclipse. It's his initial one, but all this utility awaiting the arrival of SSG from DarkZero. But SSG have some of their own as they'll force their way in off of these Candelas. Hyper, I don't believe that he knows that someone's dropped. It's going to be a team kill here as NJR actually takes down one. Foltz will get another. Hyper won't be able to win out the engagement against Foltz either. DarkZero finally get it down to a 1 versus 3 with Skies in this situation. Actually a 1 versus 2 since Pambazoo's been down. Doesn't know the exact position of either of these members at the current moment. He'll be able to get rid of that BP, but still has to deal with quite a few hard-to-reach angles. Gonna swing right into Eclipse. Pre-fires, but the F2 can't get it done up close. Eclipse will take it, and DarkZero reach map point first.
DZ shut it down in the second to last round of regulation here. It is a scrappy duel around that hatch drop, but DZ take the fight directly to the SSG members this time instead of trying to fall back on their deeper sight angles, which just was not working out for them on the previous 2 attempts. Taking it directly to the attackers, however, that's worked out much better and finally has allowed them to lock down a basement site, and even better, they can now return to the kids' dorms as that's just unlocked for play as well.
Big shout out to DarkZero and actually playing their hand that time around. Keeping things nice and slow, not trying to overdo it, forcing Spacestation into an execution, and then countering it from that moment on. The team play there worked out very handedly from them. I'm expecting more of that into this play because this right here, it's for all the marbles. DarkZero could end it right now in regulation, and although it's been a hard-fought game for SSG, there's definitely been some exploitable things that DarkZero have finally grasped a hold of.
Definitely the case. And like we already mentioned here, being able to return to the only other site they've locked down and quite fashionably in their own favor too has got to be scaring the members of SSG a little bit. We are going to see Sky switch over to the Nook, and on top of that, Houghton also going to bring in the Twitch here. So a few change-ups being made to maybe bolster this team's capability a little bit. He is going to be a bit weak on the hard breach side, but between Bosco and the secondary hard breach being brought by Skies should be more than enough in order to get access to the dorms here. It's more a question of can they work their way in, or will DarkZero once again be able to stop this pressure before it builds up to too much and allow for them to close down that 7th round.
Space-Station's success could be on the shoulders of Skies here. 11-6 at the current moment, and currently the 4th highest rated player in the NAL at a 1.18, and it is maintaining the 2nd best KD spread at plus 23, 79 and 56 currently this stage. But this round right now could be the end of his stage, depending on how this will go. Canadian moves forward inside of construction. seemingly aware of what could potentially be happening here in moments. The first minute's already gone away. SSG, not too much work done on that east side. Instead, it's been a western assault as the drones have all been out, trying to clear Eclipse out of the position we'd seen him in the last time. But instead of Frost, he's now the mute that'll be able to keep these walls locked down.
Very, very tense round here as neither team seems to want to take the initiation first. Eclipse with good reason. He's got this very comfortable bunker to play into and potentially has teammates up on top which can look down into him. Not to mention, of course, that he has a retreat route through the hatch downstairs. Foltz is there for the immediate cutoff, though, should he try to take it. And a smart move potentially from our player upstairs. Foltz, does he see the feet? He does, but he might have noticed it a bit too late. No, he's all good. Foltz knocks out Eclipse, sends him down the hatch. That's the clearance confirmed, or at least part of it is done. Canadian still lurking around in the area, but they seem to have an idea that he's here. Foltz already having his crosshair trained on him, but doesn't even realize it yet. As Canadian will try to sneak over towards those laundry stairs, but look, it's being watched. Everyone from SSG has a full idea of what's being played by DZ from the basement right now.
Yeah, they've seen it time and time again. Every time that DarkZero has played Oregon, Canadian in this position, and the potential to be the round ender for DarkZero and push them towards the major in North Carolina. Spacestation adapting their angles for this top floor hold at the current moment. Have the opportunity here to start poking and prodding and see if they could honestly get rid of one of these DarkZero situations. Like Pambazoo here bearing down on white stairs for the moment. NJR, though, trying to play his utility at the back of dorms. Canadian looking for a potential rotate here. Not able to get the kill. Hot and cold. He takes so much damage. But now SSG, they have to force their way in.
23 seconds remaining now. Skies will get the first pickup for SSG, continuing to diminish the numbers for DarkZero, now down to a count of 3. They're also in through big window, but that's been countered out. 2 are down from Canadian and Pan, but Skies returns, though, to keep the numbers in the favor of SSG. The plant goes down. Canadian in the area with a nitro in hand, but no! He's not going to move enough. Bosco with the case goes down. There's no time left for Skies. He's been knocked out, and it doesn't even matter because NJR is going crazy with the M590 and sending his team to Charlotte for the major.
A critical blunder out of Spacestation Gaming. It all comes down to the site players for DarkZero as they decimate Spacestation and make sure that they stay on the West Coast.
By one single round, DarkZero will lock in that 4th place position and make sure that they are headed to the major, that they have a chance to prove themselves on the global stage, and that they can deny SSG of that same opportunity. Congratulations to DarkZero, and good luck at the major, as we'll be seeing you there.
Incredible, incredible moments here, folks. I mean, the energy inside of the studio at this moment, I mean, is palpable. It's insane. I'm so very excited for DarkZero, not only for the team, but as an org. I was actually talking to Pengu earlier, and he said, if DZ won this match, there's 30-plus DarkZero org members that are going to North Carolina. They're so very excited for this land.
They don't waste any time. They're taking photos.
I mean, dude, just as a reminder, the last thing that this team won was a major that was online during COVID. That's the last thing that DZ has actually played and won in. So, I mean, there's so much potential with this team. Such an exciting series that we just got to witness. But once again, DarkZero edging out Spacestation Gaming in pretty convincing fashion.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for myself and Stokes here today. But we're going to go to a quick commercial break. And when we do come back, we'll have an interview ready with your winners and get their reactions to qualifying for the major.
Dreams, delusionary reality. I'm somewhere in between. These voices in my head get loud and they keep telling me that I'm a fool for trusting in these wings.
Oh my goodness, that was a map. Spacestation Gaming tried their best. They end up falling to DarkZero. DarkZero going to the Charlotte Major. We're going to take a look at the standings here after that one. We're going to get the interview with DarkZero going very soon, but holy cow, that was, you know, we knew it had the potential of being good, but that delivered, didn't it?
You didn't have to make it that close, boys. You genuinely didn't. DarkZero have punched their ticket. They're going back to North Carolina. Last time they were there, it was the Raleigh Major. Did not meet with the same amount of returns, but this time they're looking to make history, and they popped themselves into the third place position with a regulation victory, and XSET forcing their game against OXG to go to overtime. So they not only secure the major, they actually got themselves a better seed than just coming in as the last team. So that's really, really good for them.
Well, and talking about Rally and all that, you know, that's actually where all this whole like thing started. That's when Canadian actually left EG after that Rally event, and then went to SSG, and then did what he did with SSG, won a title, and now he's with DZ. It's crazy how it all comes full circle. It's magical, isn't it?
He's just like the magical wind fairy. He flits from team to team and brings some sweet, sweet victory, perhaps. But we'll get a chance to talk with him in a second here. But I mean, one of the big stories, again, like you mentioned, Jake, XSET now dropping to that 4th seed. We'll see what kind of impact that has on their major when we find out who they're going to play against. Because now if you're XSET, I mean, sure, I love watching this XSET team. They are great, but you got to be a little bit nervous now that you see yourself facing off against presumably some 1 seed from some other region now.
I mean, if nothing else, XSET are going to go into that major. It will be the single greatest wake-up call for them, probably. Not really expecting them to win because they had like so many different things to figure out over the course of this stage, but it's great that they're going to get thrown essentially right into the fire, maybe with not that many expectations, and just see what they can do. On the flip side, DarkZero, they're the known commodity. Everyone's known how they've played for a long time. They've been adapting their play style, looking for ways to shore things up, and if they didn't do it, I mean, they were one of the furthest advanced North American teams than anyone else back at the 6th Invitational, and they're just keeping this kind of thing going. So for them, it has to feel really good that their momentum isn't going to be slowed, and they can keep on going to international events this year and keep on perfecting what's gotten them to be so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people happy to see them go through here. I got to say, too, one last thing with XSET as well is that, you know, by getting to play against one of the stronger teams from the other regions, you get a chance to make a statement, too.
Yeah,
at the very beginning. So you never know. You never know. If NA is as strong as, you know, people hope / think they are, maybe this ends up benefiting the region as a whole in XSET. We will see. We will see. But I believe we're ready to chat with Canadian over there in Vegas. I believe we are, and I think we've got the whole team gathered there as well, but Canadian on the microphone. Hey, congrats on the win today. You did it. The squad got it done. You are going to the major. Now, you and I chatted a little bit yesterday online, and you were telling me, you know, we're going to treat it like just another game, but come on, at the end of the day, that wasn't just another game, was it?
It definitely wasn't, but that has to be the approach you take going into a game like that. You know what you can get out of it. You know what can happen if you lose, but you have to have the approach that you treat it like any other game. There's nothing that special. You just go out there, you play the best you can, and if you do that, if you lose, whatever, like you're happy with how you played at least, and if you win, then great. But yeah, just keeping it simple and not putting too much pressure on yourselves. It's huge.
Troy, I want to preface my question by saying I was the only mortal being here that picked Chotto win. All these bums.
Oh, shut up.
All these bums,
hey,
they had SSG.
The coin said
yeah, but the coin is inanimate. But I want to ask you a more technical question though, about round number 12. Pengu was hating. He was like, what is Troy doing? He's just walking around. But you ended up like, you almost killed Houghton on the rappel first off, and then what kind of went through your mind from there? Yeah, no, it was the last round.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last round? Oh, yeah. I mean, initially I was playing in the basement, and they know, I think from VODs, that I've been playing down there a lot. They droned me like 4 or 5 times. I thought they might be trying to hunt me. Instead, they ignored me, killed Tyler, and then I came back out, and I was like, oh, no one's around. And then I ended up just kind of hiding in classroom, and then I was just basically holding our backside, and then waiting for info on the execute to be able to C4 from below, flank, get a guy off gen rappel. Which I mean, I got him off of it, but I didn't kill him. But yeah, just kind of playing the lay around.
Give me a little bit of big picture talk real quick, because you had a top 8 finish at the 6th Invitational, didn't have to play nearly as long as like the Sonics and TSM, who had to make that crazy endurance run, and then have to make the transition back into best of 1s as opposed to best of 3s. You're going back to the major, which feels like the kind of result that you were looking for. But are you satisfied with where you guys finished up in this stage? Do you feel like you made a good transition back into best of 1s, or was that more, I guess, trouble than expected?
I think a big thing about best of 1s, and it's especially noticeable in a stage 1, is all these teams make roster changes, and you come into a stage 1 after just playing SI and a stage before that and everything, and they have tons of odds on you if you don't make a change, but you know nothing about how they play. And I think with Astralis, it definitely caught us off guard. They played like a whole new team, and we were not ready for it. And then just some small mistakes in some other matches as well, but I think, yeah, just kind of learning from what to expect from newer teams maybe in best of 1s and preparing and whatnot. That was a horrible heart from them. But yeah, just preparing differently. We kind of learned from it, but at the end of the day, as long as you qualify for the major, it doesn't really matter to us. We can, by the end of the major, for all we know, we could have the most SI points in all of NA. So as long as we qualify for the major, we're happy. Obviously, we don't want it to be as close as we made it, but learning experience, I think we've been continuing to improve as a team. And yeah, best of 3s, we're definitely far more comfortable in those. And I think we've learned a lot from our SI experience. I think even our SI run, I think we had the unfortunate situation of some tough groups where we learned a lot in groups, but we, you know, ended up placing 4th. So we played from losers bracket and didn't give ourselves a second chance, and just fell to FaZe, who without a doubt was a better team than us at the time, and they were honestly one of the only teams that we really, like, we felt, I guess, a bit outmatched by in terms of opponents. I think there was a lot of other teams in the tournament that we felt far more confident going up against them. I think FaZe's play style is just, it was a really good matchup against us, so same with their map pool.
All right, interesting. So we'll let you go in just a minute, but one more question for you. Obviously, the practice for the major starts in earnest ASAP, I would imagine, but today is a day of the celebration, right? So what's the plan for the rest of the day for the team?
Honestly, I don't really know. We're probably gonna go back home, chill, eat, hang out. Might hang out with some of the other teams. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Actually, if I could,
Party,
just because
maybe. Party time.
We've got more teams at this point that are like confirmed for the major. We're looking at like Latin America to finally like get all their stuff locked in, but Team 1 just qualified. W7M and Liquid are in the pool. Obviously, all of North America's there. Any particular team that you're actually like really keen on facing at the major, whether it's in groups or otherwise? Is there somebody you're really keen on going up against?
Oh, I thought they were answering me for a second. Oh, the guys back there. I'd say as far as matchup goes, nothing in particular. I think we're excited just to play international, play best of 3s. There will be a lot of games. It will be an exciting event, but I don't think there's any particular matchups. I want to play Astralis again because, like I said, I think the VODs, they had a lot of VODs on us going into our match, and we had no idea how they played. So I'd like to play them again, especially in a best of 3. I think we'd have a better handle of things now, but I still have a lot of respect for them as a team. Don't get me wrong, but I do think the surprise factor in that sense definitely played in their favor.
All right, cool. Well, I'm sure we got a lot to look forward to at the major either way. Thanks again for taking the time to chat with us a little bit. Good luck on the practice for the major, and looking forward to seeing what you can do in Charlotte.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
All right, there you go. Canadian and the rest of the DarkZero squad, they did do it. Looking at these stats here, it was so back and forth. Like, there were moments where it's like, all right, DZ, no way. Spacestation has this. DZ comes back. They're clutch. That was an incredible map.
That 4-2 half, I felt like really was probably the thing they didn't end up wanting. DarkZero were not a team touted as being nearly as good on attack as Spacestation were on defense coming into this matchup. Yet what do we see? A 4-2 attacking half on Oregon, where you think the advantage lies in SSG's favor, ends up being too much for SSG to come back from. In spite of their attacks looking pretty good, too much stuff just slipped on defense. Maybe they called their timeout too late. Something about the way SSG played defense was not where it needed to be today.
What's funny is I almost have to like go back and look at it again. It's because it's like, I don't know. I mean,
that game was a whirlwind, to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, there were rounds where it's like SG had the full plant in all lineups, and then wasn't like they were necessarily playing for the plant. People would get picked off early, so maybe that was. It's like micro issues, right? It can literally be the most minute thing, like people dying early on a roam, and it's not even supposed to be a roam. They're just popping drones or something. They die, and then you don't even get a chance to use your Echo Maestro because everyone's dead. You're in a 2v5. Canadian's smart enough to just flood and execute on you. So. It can be little stuff just like that.
You know, that match was a whirlwind, but we're going to take a look at a couple rounds in particular. The first one we're going to look at is going to be round number 6, I believe. And one of the things I think that got DZ ahead in this series and helped them finally close it out was their ability to come back in lower personnel situations, come back in the mismatch a little bit. And this is a good example of a 3v4 that they made work.
Yeah, so we need to pay attention to Hot and Cold's position at this point because DarkZero brought 2 operators in the Jackal and the Lion, both of which are dead that were prioritized on clearing out the roam. But now they need to bring back a 3v4 in very dire straits. Hot and Cold is about to get pinched here. You see NJR at the very opposite side of the staircase, and there's one guy upstairs, Panmizu, playing Finka, who's actually going to confirm that kill. So now they understand the prioritization needs to shift from clearing the roamers now towards the side execute, for which they've got plenty of time to do so. NJR and Eclipse, they're going to rotate off of main stairs. They did that long enough to figure out where some players were, find one roam kill, and now fall back. So the plan is entirely backstairs, maybe someone makes a freezer push, and that's exactly how DarkZero are going to play this. They understand if they don't push through blue, they're not really going to have a chance because of the way that SSG themselves are entrenched. They make this quick adaptation, force the issue, nade kills Bosco almost immediately. It's exceptionally well cooked, and now they know how much control they've got. They storm back in, have the crossfires exactly where they need to be, and all it comes down to is Rampy, who doesn't have nearly as much control as he did back when his teammates were still alive. The crosses are gone. They're eliminated systematically, one by one, and as soon as that happens, SSG just, there's nothing they can do when they're being deleted that easily.
You wonder why maybe there's not an ADS on elbow or whatnot, because well, SSG likes to double down on their strategies and whatnot. That was the reason why DarkZero decided to send it down the main stairs, which is the part we kind of missed. We started that replay a little bit. They sent it down the stairs because they saw, I mean, all those guys were roaming or they were off doing whatever, and they've got some setup somewhere else, and that left the site. Canadian loves to say this one, the site was butt naked. You know what they did?
There you go.
Right through bunker, one grenade to clear Bosco out like that. It's rough. Bosco got a rough game, and that's just tough. He didn't even get a gunfight there. It just blew up instantly. You know, it's tough at this level.
It was like 1-9 in this game, too. It didn't make it any easier.
Well, it didn't get any rougher or easier for Spacestation. The very last round of the map, we're going to check that one out as well, because this is another one where it's like, did they got it? Did they got it? DarkZero manages to clutch it out again. It really was down to these moments that were the difference.
I mean, well, we were talking about like what Canadian was doing this round. He's down in classroom looking to, I mean, for some advantage. I think he mentioned he knew Spacestation would be aware that he sometimes likes to play down here, but he doesn't kill Hot and Cold on the rappel. All it does is force him back away, and now it all comes down to his positioning. What SSG want to do is force the issue and plant inside like right off the big window push if they can, but Troy is still downstairs. Everyone on SSG, not only are they finding picks, but they're not accounting for where Canadian is. Bosco pulls off, understands there's still probably someone down there, and there's the Nitro to finish off the day and give DarkZero a major berth.
Wow, that is it. Cookies, man. DarkZero ends up making it through in probably one of the most meaningful, but also one of the most exciting maps we've seen in NAL. Saved it for the final day. You got to be here to witness it. What are your final thoughts on that one before we start looking ahead?
I am ecstatic to see DarkZero at the major, because Troy said he wanted to see Astralis again, right?
Yeah.
He wants to see those teams again. Maybe he was talking a little bit too much about how they lost to FaZe and they lost to whoever at SI, and he felt confident against those teams. And they didn't necessarily get the matchups they wanted based on how the bracket went, but this is their chance to maybe win something from what Stokes was talking about. They hadn't won something since like 2020 or something like that, and it was the online COVID majors. They want to win a major. They want to win something big. I think this is their time to do it.
They want to do it in front of the fans. They want to do it in person. Final thoughts on that one before we go to break, Jacob?
We know the 4 teams that are going to the major, they're all going to have home field advantage because it's all NA, it's all United States based in Charlotte. I do think SSG were probably the better team in one aspect today. They understood defense is where we're meant to thrive, but yet they got picked apart even in spite of having such a defensive side, which is something that's been very hard to do well in North America because of attacker repick. So if DarkZero are that adaptive and understanding of what teams are going to do before heading into a matchup, I think they've got a very good chance of going far. in the Charlotte Major, in addition to all the other North American teams, but I still think maybe DarkZero is a dark horse based upon how they played this stage. We'll see. They did really good today.
I mean, they made it. They got that spot in the Major. Now they got to prove to the world that they can do something with it. It's going to be fun to watch, but don't worry, we're not done. There's still one more match to go here at NAL, the final map of the entire stage, and it's going to be Sonics versus TSM. Absolutely hype matchup, but it's a battle for 8th place. That's right, neither team is going to the Major, but one of those teams can still get away with some SI points at the end of the year. That might be pretty meaningful, so still a lot to play for here. Do not go anywhere. Final map of the stage coming up in just a moment.